So when I decided to start doing these podcasts, and I made a list of the people that I wanted to talk to and I guess interview, but I don't really see it as an interview. You were the first name on the list.
Oh, that's so nice.
We have one of the weirdest histories.
Yeah.
When you actually think back to how long we've known each other, we got off on such a bad foot.
Yeah.
We've had loads of arguments. Have we not?
I think our first conversation was an argument.
Yep, for definite. We'll get to that later on. So I kind of think we should approach this kind of chronologically and just start from when you started modeling, and we'll just pick it apart. But I'm the most non-linear person, so we'll do our best.
Fine.
So when did you actually start modeling?
I wish I could tell you the year, but I can't remember the year. I think it was about...
I'm sure it was like 2012, 2013, because you were right around the same time as me.
Yeah.
I started 2013. So.
21, I think. And I'm 27 now. So, yeah, quite a while ago.
So what got you in? Like, was it something you were looking to get into, or did it kind of something happen?
It was a really weird time, actually. I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and his parents, and his mum told me that I should try and give it a go.
But just in general?
Yeah, she was like, literally, she was just like, why don't you just see if like you could get into modelling? I was like, no, don't be stupid. And then I kind of sat and thought about it, and I was like, why not give it a shot, see what happens,
Right.
It doesn't hurt anyone. So I did. I managed to get kind of a few test shoots and stuff. And yeah, it was fun, and I started to really enjoy it, and then I guess it kind of just momentumed from there.
Well, you went nuts quick, because I remember seeing the first few images of you go up online, like when you were first starting. I was just starting.
Yeah.
And it seemed like you really hit the ground running. So do you remember your first shoot?
Yeah.
Was it good?
No. It was, I mean, I guess it's just kind of like your basic shoot. It was on a white backdrop, like pretty boring lighting.
Right.
You bring a load of outfits with you. I brought my best friend with me as well, because I was a bit scared, didn't know what the hell was going on. All the photos are terrible. I look nervous as hell. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I mean, it had its kind of, I guess what's the word, like value, because it meant that people could actually see some kind of professional shots, like headshots, body shots, blah, blah, blah. And then you kind of pick up additional work through that, because you can start being a bit more creative and do stuff that's not just on a white backdrop, I suppose. But
black background, a grey background.
It was literally just a white one. I didn't even get different colours.
You got to expand.
Didn't get any colours. Just got one. And I think it was like 3 outfits. And when you came away from the first shoot, though, did you feel like that was something you wanted to do? Was the end of that shoot, were you like, actually, you know what, that was a lot of fun? Oh my God, yeah. I was like, it was such an adrenaline rush. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I think at the time I really liked the photos, and I thought they were really good.
That's always the way, right?
And I was like, wow, maybe this is something I could do. So yeah, that's exactly what I did. I set up a purple port, I put those pictures up, and looked at kind of other people in the area and saw what they were doing, and if there was anyone else I could do a shoot with and that kind of stuff. Because I think my next shoot was around Reading town centre, the glamorous lifestyle of
jealous.
But then obviously that takes you from out of studio to like outside, so gives you kind of a different perspective. But
well, I guess as well in terms of like nerve, because in a studio it's like a clinical setting.
Yeah,
but when you're like first time modeling outside of a studio when there's other people about, is that terrifying?
Yeah, and I was still taking people with me because I was so nervous. I think I took my boyfriend at the time with me on that one because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But like, yeah, people stare at you, people heckle, and I really wasn't expecting that kind of when I first thought about doing it. So
there's usually like a guy that says something like, "Oh, darling," as if you're going to go, "Oh, thanks.
Oh my God.
He likes me. That disgusting, poorly washed person likes me."
Yeah, that happened a lot. And yeah, it was still really scary. The pictures were still awful.
But you're really fashionable now. And you, all the time I've known you've been very fashionable. Like you're always really well dressed, and
Thanks.
you have really good sense, nice fringe.
Thanks.
Wish it was blonde, but that's fine. We'll get to that later. But were you kind of fashion focused before you were into modeling? Did you have like an idea of the kind of styles that you wanted to go after?
No, to be completely honest, like literally not a clue. I went in blind, basically, like not a clue what was going to happen, not a clue what I wanted to do, and I just kind of rolled with what happened. I was quite lucky as well because I had a friend who lived in the same village as me. I think she really helped with kind of that snowball thing that you were talking about. So for example, like one day it snowed, and we went out and shot in the snow in the woods, and I think that was one of kind of the most popular pictures I did at the beginning.
I think I can even remember the picture.
Yeah. And I think that really helped because, I mean, I didn't really have to do much as such from like a modelling perspective.
Right.
But you could still get kind of like a really nice picture. And I think that helped kind of take it from that, you know, kind of the more static kind of studio images, the awkward stuff outdoors, and then you kind of move it along a bit to something a bit more kind of, I guess, conceptual, if you want to call it that, a bit more stylized.
I love that you've used that word. So actually, let's go on a tangent. Let's go on a tangent. So you did a lot of stuff that was like fine art, conceptual.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, I'm talking.
Yeah.
You seem to have found a niche there.
Yeah.
Was that something that you, like, enjoyed doing, but did it feel like that elevated your sort of status a little bit?
I think it helped. But that's kind of, yeah, as you said, it took me a while to get there because I kind of worked out what I wanted to do more at that point. I guess I know you were saying about fashion anyway. I think it's more like a creative thing, quite a creative person. And I think that's kind of where that came out a little bit more. So it was more stuff that I do off my own back rather than, you know, people being like, "Oh, I'll pay you to do this," kind of thing. It was more like, I want to do this. I want to do it with this photographer and this kind of style. Like, and, you know, I just chuck some ideas out and see what people think.
Right.
Sometimes it was like, and I'm pretty sure I did it to you and you were like, no. And then some people were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. And we do it. So I think it helped. I think it helps kind of make you a bit different to other people, which I think, I hate that it's status, but yeah, I guess kind of I was a bit more popular because I did something a bit different to everyone else.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's not so much like how a lot of people sort of, the metric for success now is just like likes and follows and loads of bollocks. It's really not actually relevant to life. But you have to be popular for people to see you, for you to then move on to bigger jobs. So I don't think it was a bad thing that you had a higher status. I mean, I remember when I approached you, I was terrified of you. I honestly was absolutely terrified of you. To be honest with you, I would say, and this is really going to offend a few people, but I think you were the first real model that I approached.
Oh,
I know I've just annoyed a couple of people. But I do. I genuinely think you were I think while we're here, let's just talk about our first interaction with each other. God. So I'm going to tell my side of it, and then you can absolutely correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm right. So as I remember it, I approached to work with you, and I think we'd set like a potential idea, no date, but a potential idea, and whatever the situation was between us, how it was going to work out. And then I had a habit at the time of posting stuff in the forum on the site that we were using and asking questions that I probably shouldn't have asked or making statements I shouldn't have made. Half the time it was to amuse myself. And the other half of the time it was, I didn't realize that tact was needed with this industry as much as what it is. And I actually remember exactly what I think was the thing that caused our first argument. Now, I'll explain my side of this very carefully. I made a post asking, basically, why is it that if you're really ugly and you want to be a model, you just have to go and get a load of tattoos and call yourself an alt model? That was my post. Are we so far in agreement?
I actually couldn't remember it, but now this is coming back to me.
Yeah. So that was my post. And I remember, I think it was like within a few hours, I had a message off of you that was like saying I was talking about you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. And I shit myself.
I legitimately thought that you were talking about me.
No, not at all. I was... No, not even remotely. But I shit myself thinking, oh no, I've fucked up this shoot. We were supposed to shoot together and I've ruined it. But I wasn't talking at all in any way about you because you have, I think, like 3 tattoos, I think. 4. Oh, I was close considering it's been a few years.
Yeah.
But it would be kind of weird for me to approach to want to work with you and then shitpost you on a forum. But then there are people out there.
Exactly.
So fair enough. No, I was referring more to the people that have less going on. And then they get loads of tattoos and they kind of, the tattoos fill in all the blanks of having any personality or any looks. They're like stickers, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think some people use tattoos like stickers, and that's all I was asking was why is it that like the threshold of raw talent necessary to be a model goes down if they have tattoos? That's kind of the point I was making, but I was making it in an incredibly bad way. So that put off our shoot for a few months, I think.
Yeah.
While we argued back and forth.
Yeah.
Which was, do you know what? I have to say, one of my favorite things about you is you're one of the only people I would say is a really worthy adversary for a good online argument. We've had some good online arguments and you are really good at it.
I mean...
High praise.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, I guess if I've got an opinion, I'm quite forward with it. So I'll have an argument to your face as well. It's fine.
Oh yeah, we've done that. We've done that too.
It doesn't have to be over the computer.
And okay, so there's probably going to be. So we haven't seen each other for, I think 2.5, maybe 3 years.
Must be about 3. Yeah.
About 3 years, which is crazy because I don't feel like I've even been doing this for 3 years. So anyway, but what's going to keep happening as we talk about stuff, I think we're just going to remember different stuff that we've actually done.
Oh my God.
As we've known each other. And, and you said about throwing like conceptual ideas out and seeing what happens. Well, we did that. I don't know if you remember this, but you came down the coast when I was living down in Littlehampton. Yeah. And the plan was like a mermaid type thing. Yeah. And if I remember rightly, you had dresses that were supposed to come and they didn't arrive. Yeah. So we went out and I bought like a 200, whatever it was, like 150, 200 pound evening gown for us to go down the beach with. Yeah. We did that shoot. Now, the only thing I can remember really vividly about this shoot was being incredibly hungry on the way to go and shoot after we bought the dress and shouting at a school kid out of the car because I was so hungry. I was like, hangry.
I can't even remember what you shouted at him now.
I can't go into what it is. I know what I shouted about, but I probably will get shut down if I say what I was actually annoyed about.
I know. I remember
please
you doing
don't try
that.
and remember because then you'll say it out loud and I'll get in trouble. But I remember sitting in the back of the car. You were sat in the front. I'm almost positive you were sat in the front. I was in the back.
I remember you being very hangry.
And Jamila had to drive us to Greg's so that I would eat something so that I would calm down because I was so pissy and moany. Yeah. And then we did the shoot and it was fine. It was obviously I was nowhere near my forte and I was a bit crap, but we did the shoot and I didn't kill anyone. So that was a bonus.
I think I got heckled quite a lot on that one as well. Yeah. We were on the Littlehampton coastline, weren't we?
Yeah, we were like West Beach and yeah.
A lot of people shouting at us.
I was really out of my depth on that. I was really out of my depth. Like I had no right to be doing that photo shoot at all.
That was literally my fault though. See, this is what I mean. I just chuck ideas at people and if they go, yeah, I'll be like, great, let's do it.
And then I have to go out and buy an expensive dress. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. Oh my God, I remember that because you were like, don't ruin it. Don't get anything on it. I've got to return it. Like,
I actually sold it on.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they were. I think you got in an argument at the shop because you were like, I want to return this. I'm literally just using it for a shoot, and they were like,
I think afterwards, we went to return it, and they weren't having it, and I wasn't having that. They weren't having it, and in the end, they didn't have it, so they won.
Yeah,
but I sold the dress on for pretty good money. So talk to your stalker. No. So in those early stages, the first couple of years, how long did you actually model for total?
I think it was 3 years.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Christ. Okay, so in the first year, so that would be the early part, and then you got the middle part, and then you got the end part. In the first year, who were the people that you worked with that you felt like really? No, you can't remember anyone. Do you remember modeling?
I do remember modeling. I can't remember specific names though. I think you were quite early on though.
Yeah, but I didn't elevate you at all. Like
I think you did.
I don't think so.
I think you did.
I just do.
Yeah, but you did
people floating around in the field stuff. At that point, so.
But I think that was good. Some really strong headshots and stuff.
This is the most insincere eye contact I've ever had in my life.
Oh my God. No, it's not.
But you worked with like Jake Hicks. Was that like, it must have been in your first year because that was really early on. You were blonde.
I was blonde. Must have been, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was the first year, but it was still quite early on.
It was the early stages. We'll call the blonde era your early stages, the best era.
Yeah. And that was a fun shoot. And it definitely had some value. Bit of a crazy setup because you'd think from the shoot it was very lavish and like in a big studio. It was literally like in his living room in his little flat in Reading.
Right. A lot of stuff with you happening in Reading. You were in Reading at the time,
I was in
right?
Reading at the time,
right.
Yeah. And that's pretty much who I shot with, just like local people. So obviously Jake was local.
And now he's famous.
And now he's quite famous.
We're in my flat.
And I'm
next to a puppy just talking bollocks. So
yeah, you know.
And you work with Jeff Tolniemi?
Yeah.
A fair bit, I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, he ended up being my next door neighbour for a while.
That's right.
Yeah.
You creeper.
So, I mean, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't even realise. And then I went to his house and I was like, you literally live next door. And he was like, oh, yeah. But it was really good, you know.
Yeah.
Good.
He shot in his living room as well, right?
He just shot in his house.
Yeah. I remember going round. So the podcast has taken like 5 years for me to find out what I want it to be. And the first thing I ever did, I had this idea of making. I thought it was going to be like a documentary. I was very naive, and I would basically interview different photographers and models and stuff about what the industry's actually like and good points and bad points.
Yeah.
And he was like the first person that actually let me in the door and let me have a chat with him.
Yeah.
And he let me come around and watch him do a shoot. And it was amazing what he got done in such a tight space.
Oh my God, yeah. He's great.
Not that he had a small flat or house, I can't remember what it was, but it was a big room, but it's just for photography's sake, it's a small space. It's always a small space.
Yeah.
I've always liked his work. Very kind of like old school Vogue-ish, I guess.
Yeah, he's very inspired by that kind of stuff. And yeah, he's great. He's a really great photographer, a great person to work with. And he's very, it's kind of like a really nice mix. So he'll give some form of direction on a specific shot that he's looking for. But most of the time he'll just kind of let you get on with it.
Yeah.
And he'll want something kind of very naturally to happen because then you get a more authentic shot that way.
Right.
Which was really cool. So we shot loads of stuff when we were both around, basically and free. And sometimes it would be like, oh, it's a sunny day. Do you want to do a shoot? And we'd be like,
when you're next door to each other, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was great. I did work with him quite early on, but he was very new then as well. Especially kind of to the online scene. I don't think anyone even really knew who he was.
It doesn't help that I think even to this day, his website still says under construction. He drives me mad. I love his work, right? But you can't even go on his website to look at it because you just go on, it's like coming soon. And I'm pretty sure it said coming soon since I was 27.
Yeah, I think he utilizes social media more. I think he's got quite good relationships with agencies as well. So
yeah, he's here in Finland, right? Because his wife is Finnish.
I don't
think.
I think so. I can't remember.
I don't want to get the wrong nationality because someone will be sending me hate mail, but I'm pretty sure she's Finnish. I think that's where the whole Tonyemi thing came from. But
he's definitely got connections out there. They go out there quite a lot.
Yeah. Scandinavia is a good place to find models, really.
I know. I mean, the people he shoots are absolutely stunning. So, you know.
Yeah. And then there was moving on to the next argument that we had.
Oh, God.
So do you remember you put up this actually started a rivalry between me and a guy, and he didn't even know we had a rivalry. I had it all in my head for like 3 weeks. I was like, me and this guy are mortal enemies. He would not be able to pick me out of a lineup. So you put a post up saying that you needed someone to help you photograph like a summer cover photo thing.
Yeah. I got it. I know who you mean.
And the description you gave, I only knew how to do one thing. And I've evolved since. I can now do 4 things. But at the time, I only had to do one thing, which was that kind of like pretty floaty, summery, natural light stuff. That's the only thing I knew how to do. And you put this casting up that you might as well have stapled it to my forehead.
Yeah.
Because it was like, that's the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah.
We've worked together by this point. We didn't kill each other somehow. And you went with someone else. This guy that's now at this point in life was my biggest rival. I was like, I hated this guy, and I was like, who does he think he is? He did not know I was even bothered by him.
Yeah,
we never said a word to each other.
Yeah.
But yeah. So do you remember this? Do you remember?
I remember the exact image and the exact photo shoot, and I remember instantly regretting my decision. Because he destroyed it, basically. So
I do remember you coming back when we talked about it later on. I think like a year later, we had a really long conversation about it, like laughing our heads off because you went in with this idea and he went the laziest possible route with it.
Yeah, so he was in a flat in, I can't even remember where I was. I think it might have been somewhere like Shepherd's Bush. And basically, he took me across the road to a bush on a pavement and shot it there. I swear to you. Which, I mean, fine. I mean, sometimes that can work and whatever. But like, come on.
What you were going for, it was miles away from what you had kind of set out.
Yeah. And
I seem to remember as well a headdress being across your eyes for some photos.
That was a different shoot.
Was that a different shoot?
That was a different shoot.
Right. But I remember you saying like, I'm sure it must be this different shoot, but you were like, why did he keep putting it across my eyes? Like I couldn't see what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that was a different shoot. But that one, that was destroyed basically.
It was a real shame because like the whole idea was really cool. And even if it wasn't me, which at the time I was being a petulant little dick about it, even if it wasn't me, it was going to be a really good photo based on the idea that you'd put up.
Yeah.
And it was honestly not just because I wanted this other guy dead or anything, but it was really disappointing when I saw the photo and I was just like, really?
Yeah.
Like, that's as far as we could take it?
Yeah. It was, yeah. I mean, if you're stood on a pavement in Shepherd's Bush, like putting your head in a bush that's someone else's garden, like there's only so much you can do really, to be honest with you. But yeah.
I mean, that was that's when to me you were getting big. To me.
Yeah, fine.
That's when you were doing like, you started to do hair stuff?
Yeah.
At that point?
Did quite a lot of hair work. Yeah.
I got told you're way more experienced in this than obviously I am because I've got no hair as a start, but I'm also not a model. But I've been told that hair models, it's a really weird job.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard. And people think it's easy because, you know, you go in, you get your hair done, you get paid loads of money. It's really not like that at all. You work for that money, 100%. Especially if you start working for big salons. And yeah, it can be really hard. Sometimes they'll tell you they're going to do something and then they change their mind on the day and you have absolutely no say in what they're doing. So they just do whatever they want to your hair. And I've had that happen to me. To the extent that I've had to go home and dye my hair into the middle of the night so I didn't get sacked from my job.
Oh, Christ.
Basically, they dyed my hair pink when they told me they were going to put pinks in like the ends of it. They dyed my entire hair fluorescent pink. And I was like, I literally can't because obviously I've got a job as well. I can't go to work like this. I'll get fired. And they were like, oh, well, you'll have to come back in the week. I was like, I can't come back in the week. This isn't my full-time job. So they just kind of left it like that.
So what's the planning stage for? Like, obviously that was last minute, but when you're a hair model, how long is the arrangement? Is it like they get you in a couple of months before and do like a trial, and then they pull you at the last minute, or is it literally like last minute? Usually
last minute. I think they would like to think that they have that much time. Usually they don't.
Right.
And I have worked for some really great salons that actually do give you that much time. So they'll be like, look, we're going to do a shoot in 2 months. We want your hair like this. Is that all right? Or do you want us to change something? Et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, there's some really great people out there. But usually it's last minute. You go in about 2 days before the shoot. Or the show, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
They'll dye your hair. They'll go, leave it alone, don't wash it, blah, 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 blah. So you just have to do nothing for 2 days, which isn't great, obviously, if you're doing this as a full-time job as well.
Yeah.
And then they'll do it. They usually do it again, and they'll either be like, I remember once I went to a show and they were like, why haven't you washed your hair? I was like, because you told me not to wash my hair. So they took me up to someone's hotel room, washed my hair over a bath, and then were like, oh, we need to do your hair again. I was like, why didn't you just tell me to wash my hair?
Yeah.
I could have washed my own hair. But yeah, it is like that. It's crazy. So they literally will. But usually, they'll give you an inkling of what they want to do with it. So, for example, if they're like, oh, we want your hair to be, I don't know, bright copper. That was the main one I used to get, is we want to do it bright copper, really bold, talk about how we did it, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, that's fine. And they'll be like, oh, can we cut a bit off? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
You hear the clippers start.
I know. But I've been in those situations though, where literally they're like, oh, actually we need to cut like 4 inches off your hair. And I'm like, no effing way, you're not doing that.
Right. But going in, is there like a contract set up where they have like any right to do anything like that?
No.
So it just comes down to discretion.
Yeah. So it's kind of very ad hoc. I mean, I don't know. There are people that do this full time and maybe they have kind of better contracts in place. But from my experience, it's ad hoc. It's like, we desperately need a model usually. Can you do it? We're going to do this. Is that all right? And you go, yeah, no. And then sometimes they change their mind on the day, and then you let them do whatever.
But you've worked with some bigger names. I mean, I'm sure you worked with Emmanuel Esteban.
Yeah, he was working for Anne Vick at the time.
Let's see, that's not small.
No, and Anne was okay. She might have been the person that dyed my hair pink. But but no, she's fab. And I worked with her about 3 or 4 times. And there was one shoot that we did for a hair book in France where the photographer on the day basically said he wanted to cut my hair very, very short because he only wanted women with short hair in the book. And I said, no way. And she was like, right, we'll just put a wig on you. So I shot in a wig.
Okay.
So, from that perspective, she was great. But I think it just depends on the shoot and kind of the vision of what they do, because sometimes they change their minds and stuff. But at that point, he was assisting, so he was styling hair.
Because he's really cool. Every time he posts something, I'm just staggered at how it's even done.
Yeah, he's much bigger now than when I worked with him. But at that point, he was assisting.
Well, you were his jumping point, basically. You can just say that. You were his claim.
Of course.
But the shows are really different, right? The like catwalk shows.
Shows are hard, yeah.
So I have a question, because I got told a story about a hair show where a model who's not normally a hair model did a catwalk hair show, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And apparently there are very strict rules in place, at least there were at this one, about you basically walk down, everyone looks at your hair, you walk back.
Yeah.
And she decided that to stand out, she would be incredibly flamboyant and pull loads of poses. Ooh. And yeah.
Oh.
And it didn't go down particularly well.
No.
And caused quite a large argument apparently afterwards. Oh. Is that the case? Is it quite strict? And
again, I think it depends what you're doing. kind of the colour trophy stuff, so like the competition, you literally have to stand there. There's no, I guess, modelling as such to
do
do
like a
with
mannequin?
it. Yeah, 100%. There's literally, when you go through to like regionals, there is a section where you stand there for half an hour and you stand still and you don't move. And it's actually quite dangerous. When I was there, someone fainted because you're under really bright lights as well.
Yeah.
So you just stand there.
It's a
yeah.
form of torture, right? That's literally a form of torture.
It's not the best.
I'm not saying it's the hardest job in the world and it's the worst thing ever,
No.
but that is a form of torture.
It's harder than people think. And, you know, I understand that it sounds like I'm being a bit pedantic, being like, oh, you have to stand there for half an hour and you get paid loads of money. It's actually really, really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
I'd be the first person to call you out if you were being a bit of a diva, and you're definitely not. I wouldn't want to do a job where I had to stand under bright lights for that long without moving, without causing any problems, while people inspect me.
Yeah, and literally that's what they do. You get like, there's about 4 or 5 judges and they walk around and they're literally, I think they stayed at my hair for about 30 seconds in that half an hour thing.
Which makes it worse.
Yeah.
Because you're like, why have I been here for all this time?
Yeah.
Right.
And you literally stand there with like a picture of yourself before you had your hair done. So mine was like a selfie from Instagram because they didn't tell me what picture they were going to pick. So they just picked up this selfie from Instagram. So I just stood there with this and they just glance at you and that's it. And that's really tough. But yeah, like the catwalk side of things is either very choreographed, so you'll have to do something very particular, or they don't really want anything. Right. It's just you walk, you show the hair, you go. That's it.
Right. But when you say it's awards, who is winning the award? Is it the hairdresser or is it a company?
Yeah. So the most popular one is run by L'Oreal, which is Colour Trophy.
Right.
And salons from all across the country will enter to compete, basically. So it goes through a couple of rounds. So I think the first round is where they do a photo shoot. So they shoot a model, they do kind of like a before and after. It's usually quite editorial and that kind of stuff. So if you get shortlisted.
The people judging, sorry to interrupt, because I'm actually really interested in this because I've never been in a position to ask these questions. So the people judging, they only see the photos or do they don't witness the shoot?
No.
So it's really interpretable by retouching?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why I guess it moves later on to live stuff.
Yeah.
See, I almost feel like I'm quite smart for figuring that out by myself.
So then if you get through, then it's usually a short list per region and then there's a regional contest. And then from there, it's basically kind of like a task. So you can do some basic hair prep before, but basically the hair has to be dyed and everything, so you can't do that. But you have about half an hour to style it. So basically it's like this huge row of these kind of like vanity mirrors and people just going crazy for half an hour
does it
doing
hurt?
people's hair.
I mean, I don't have hair, so I can't even remember what it's like to have hair, but does it hurt having people pulling your hair around?
I mean, most hairdressers are really gentle because obviously they're trained to not tug on
I just
people's
thought because they're in a
hair.
rush, it would be a bit terrifying.
It is a bit like, but usually they've got kind of quite a few people helping them if they can. But yeah, then they have about half an hour to do this, get this whole style done. Then you basically go up and walk. And then you do that thing where I was saying you stand still for ages and they come around and look at your hair.
Try not to faint.
Yeah, and literally someone fainted. It was awful. And then they just do an announcement after that, basically, of who gets through. There's like, I can't remember how many people it is, but there's kind of like a few that will get through to like the bigger final. And then there's like another big award show.
Is there a trophy
that.
at the end?
I think
like a literal trophy.
I don't know,
because if they're calling it a trophy, I want it to be like a bowling trophy.
I don't know because I didn't ever go to one of the kind of final shows, so I don't know.
Okay,
but I did a few of the regional ones and they were really tough. They were long days because you have to go and get your hair done before, and then they're not over till like 10 o'clock at night, and it's pretty long.
But as far as obviously, there's several models all there on the day, all at the same time.
Yeah.
Is it particularly nice environment, or are you competitive between yourselves as models?
No. Models are just like all super friendly with each other, and I mean not all the time, but I think in shows in particular, because you're waiting around for bloody ages usually,
Right.
backstage for them to call you out and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you don't talk to them, you don't talk to anyone.
Yeah, it's true.
And yeah, I think the last one I did, they were very attentive to the models. So they had like loads of food out, loads of water, stuff to like really help everyone, make sure they don't pass out and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't think, I mean, I've never met a model in that kind of scenario who's been catty because they're on a different salon's
Well,
team.
I suppose also as well, it's a lot of stuff up front because you're face to face. A lot of people act differently than what they would be online. So, one quick question, and then we're gonna spin away from this. But is it the hair modeling the reason that you went ginger or copper or whatever we're calling it?
No.
So you chose that was the direction we had to go in, and that sort of did that lead to more hair modeling because you did it?
Yeah.
I see. And was that the reason at all, or was it just literally a desire to be?
I wanted to go ginger for quite a while. I didn't know what it would look like. I bought a wig because I wanted to make sure like I knew what it looked like before I did it. And I had a really good friend at that point who was a hairstylist, and I asked her if she'd do me a favour and dye it for me. And she did. So, yeah. So
was it shocking at first?
No.
Were you cool with it?
I really liked it straight away.
Right.
And it did. I think it helped because auburn colour is kind of quite on trend for hair salons, especially around.
It's striking. It's a dominant colour, right?
Yeah, and especially around autumn, winter. It's quite a big colour that comes in, especially either from customers or from like a more kind of editorial perspective. So, I mean, I didn't do it to get hair work. I wasn't particularly fussed by getting hair work, but it just kind of happened. Yeah.
Right. So when it came to, obviously you did a lot of professional work, hair modelling and other stuff. And then obviously there's also the freelance side of things where you're kind of working directly with a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
They're massively different, but also challenging in their own ways.
Yeah.
Any preference? Obviously the professional stuff's a lot more professional.
Do you know what? I think neither. Because neither. No, and there's a reason why. It's because I prefer the stuff that I kind of started with, where I guess I kind of had a bit more control over what I was doing.
So the stuff where you were kind of leading the idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And I definitely enjoyed that stuff a lot more. But, bills to pay, it kind of, you're buying all the outfits, the props, blah, blah, blah. It all really adds up. So I kind of tried to keep a balance still kind of between the two. But I think that's the stuff I preferred more. I know that's not the favoured opinion on these things, and that I should probably be like, oh, I preferred doing this. But actually I preferred the more creative stuff, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I think as well, because you're no longer in that world, you're going to give a more honest answer. I think people are protecting their own interest when they say they like something that maybe they don't.
Yeah.
Okay. So you modelled for about 3 years, and then was there like a gradual move to stop modelling?
Yeah.
Did it start to wear on you, and then there was just a tipping point?
Yeah.
So what was it that was wearing on you?
And I guess it kind of comes back to the point I just made. I just started to hate it.
Right.
I actually really, I can't believe I ever got to that point, but I did. And I just did not enjoy it. This is brutally honest. I just did stuff for the cash by the end of it. I was just not happy. And I hate to say it, but the industry was becoming slightly more sleazy by the time I left. And I'm not really about that. I remember once there was a photographer who said to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, are you going to do topless because you haven't actually got your tits out yet? And I was like, sorry.
Jesus Christ.
So that was, it was stuff like that. It grates on you eventually. Like sometimes you can laugh it off. And, you know, some people do just joke around, and that's fine because that's how some people deal with being awkward and stuff. But that guy was literally like, oh, you're only doing implied, but you told me you do topless. I'm only paying you for topless and that kind of stuff. Like, and I was like, I'm sorry. Like,
well, I say quite a lot with weddings. It's obviously a completely different side of it. But I meet a lot of photographers at weddings because there's guys that bring along cameras and they either are just starting out as a hobby. They're usually like 40 years old and they're just starting out. You know, they got a bit of money from like a bonus or whatever. They buy a camera. They're looking for something to do. And there is a lot of people that buy a camera as a social crutch.
Yeah.
And that's the worst possible thing, to want the camera to be your lead-in socially.
Yeah.
But then you've got to interact with a subject, because the camera's like if me and you were doing a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can present to you as any interest on my part is a camera. Once you're aware I own a camera, there's no conversation.
Yeah.
And then it gets weird.
Yeah.
And I think the more it gets weird, the more people will wildly say stuff that, I'm not saying this guy wasn't a complete dick and sounds like a right fun guy, all things considered.
Yeah.
But I think that it almost makes people go, I've had some weird things said to me at weddings.
Yeah.
Where I've had like weirdly aggressive things said to me, and then they're like, oh, I didn't mean to sound aggressive. I think that it's almost like you get that awkward stammer and the camera's the lead in, but they don't realize that once you've got the lead in, you then have to interact.
Yeah.
So when you were doing one-on-one stuff or like freelance stuff working with a photographer, was it, I mean, what's it like in the build up to doing that stuff? When you're turning up and you've never met this guy before, don't start with talking about me, but because we met in the woods. Let's not start with that.
Oh, yeah, we did.
It was Richmond Park, actually.
It was
Richmond Park. Lovely sunny evening.
Aww.
I still have like a handful of the raw files.
Oh, that was so much fun.
It was actually all right. I was terrified because we'd had these huge rows in the build up, and then we meet, and me and you were just fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, she didn't like go for me. There was no stabbing. You turn up at Richmond Park, and I was like, do I die here? This is where she kills me. But it was all right. But when you're in the build up and you've had the pre-communications with someone that wants to shoot with you, and you're maybe looking at it that they're not the most experienced or accomplished, and they're still building their skill set. Is it quite nerve-wracking coming in?
I think it's quite hard to give a blanket answer, because some people are actually super nice, super friendly. We'll chat to you about everything, anything, don't care. It's usually about a particular online website and how they don't agree with other people and all that kind of stuff. But, some people are like that. Some people don't say a word and it's like, okay, what do I do? I think you have to realize that, I mean, for the most part, and I speak for the good people, not the bad ones, is that some people are incredibly nervous and that some people know about some of the bad stuff that goes on and they don't want me to feel uncomfortable or say something that I might misinterpret because they don't know me and they don't know how I'm going to react. Yeah. So they don't say anything, which obviously isn't kind of good or bad. I mean, and sometimes you can kind of get them to relax and, they kind of chill out a bit more. But, sometimes I'll get a message being like, oh, I'm sorry, like I was just really nervous. Like I didn't do anything. Did I? Are you okay? And stuff. And then you kind of get it a bit more. You kind of get why people are like that.
Yeah.
And I do think that's the other side of this stuff that people don't realize, is that there are loads of good people out there that just want to learn photography, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to, this might be like the only other person they talk to apart from their wife or something, and they don't know what to do.
Well, as well, you've got the age gaps. Generally speaking, if you talk in real generalities, you're talking 30 to 50-year-old blokes, maybe older, maybe younger, but generally speaking. And then the women are sub 25 in a lot of cases. And sub 25 women and guys over 30 will have almost no cultural path crossing.
No.
They're not doing the same things. They don't watch the same shows. They don't listen to the same music. Again, it's just generalities.
Yeah.
And there's another whole side to things which crippled me for a while, really genuinely crippled me. And I've become militant about this since I've kind of had a bit of an awakening to what it's like. There is obviously how's the best way to put this? With the way sort of social culture is going, as a guy, quite often you start off as the bad guy.
Yeah.
Especially, I guess, with a camera as well. I always make a joke at weddings about the fact that I have a beard and a camera. The only thing I'm missing is like a hollowed out ice cream van, and I'm like the biggest threat on earth. But there is like a preconception that you're bad because you're a guy. I mean, generally speaking, nowadays it's not the most fun it's ever been to be a bloke. And people come in with a lot of misconceptions and a lot of pre-designed ideas of why you're doing what you're doing, why you're into what you're into. And that's a real shame because I think that also cripples people that, like you say, are only coming into it because they want to learn photography or they're just looking for something to do. And that's a real shame. I think that's underestimated as well. I went through a phase of being really defensive about it. And that's worse because when you're defensive about it, you're the one focusing on it, which means you bring it up more. And then it's almost like a double-edged thing that you're kind of, if you're it's hard to describe, but if you're the one that's like, if everyone's just stood in the room and you go, well, I didn't fart and there's no smell, everyone's like, okay, so this guy just farted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like. It felt like I had to sort of explain myself before I did anything. And that was horrible. That was really horrible. I had some really terrible experiences. But in that period, I went through this weird phase of a lot of stuff going wrong in my life in general. And then something really bizarre happened. So I was booked in to do a couple of shoots. And they were models I'd not worked with before. It was just literally me learning what I was into and whatever. And so I'm away in Finland and I got really ill while I was in Finland. I was out there for a week, absolutely freezing, minus sort of 40, minus 30 in that ballpark. My eye popped, so that was what I had all these problems with my eye. I think you remember all of that. And about 2 or 3 days in, and I couldn't come back until the following Saturday. My wife let me know that my auntie had died.
Oh no.
And we were very close and I was really struggling sort of on a sort of self-esteem level and then with the problems physically, and I'm trying to photograph a wedding which I was dangerously underqualified to be doing in the middle of the Arctic Circle. And I flew back and I just cancelled. I just blanket cancelled everything I could cancel for the next 5 or 6 weeks. Basically with the idea of I didn't know whether or not I was going to make it out of this 5 or 6 weeks with everything that was going on. And the website that you are sort of alluding to, one of them started a thread on the forum on there, which is just one of the most toxic places on earth, saying that I had fabricated my auntie dying and being ill so that I could get out shooting with them and that I was basically an arsehole.
Jeez.
And then because of the way the dynamic works, again, because you have the designed idea that because you're the photographer, you're the bad one in the situation, or you're the guy, you're the bad one in the situation. And other photographers love this because it's like when the biggest shark, I'm not saying I was the biggest shark, but it's like when the biggest shark gets injured and all the other sharks attack it. So they can kind of move up the pecking order. That's what it felt like. I had everybody saying, oh yeah, well I've heard such and such. Oh yeah, well blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden there's just this wild thread going on. And I actually had to threaten the site with defamation. Because there was stuff being said that was basically accusing me of things that I guess would be criminal.
Jeez.
But horrible stuff that in a million years I've never been anywhere near. But it's a very toxic environment and it's a very bizarre social place. And that's why I think I clamped onto you after we got past the initial arguments, because I think you saw it the same as I did, that socially it's a bizarre place. And I think we almost got together online it felt like every few, maybe once a month, once every other month, and just go through, right, here's what's happened.
Yeah.
Here's this person. Can you believe they've done this? Blah, blah, blah. And you just try and unpack all of that nonsense and the noise and try and make heads or tails of it.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of my best memories with you, is just trying to work out what the hell was going on most of the time.
I mean, it made me avoid quite a lot of people as well. Like if someone was being, I don't know, like rude or inappropriate about someone else or saying something that felt like it was crossing the line, I would have literally no interest in working with that person ever.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not interested in getting in the drama. I hardly ever worked with anyone who was in all that noise. It's toxic. It's horrible. People don't think about what they say because it's the internet. They don't realise that there's consequences to what they're saying.
And that's just the modern age, right? That's people see everyone else as an account. They don't see him as a person and what's going on behind.
No.
And I've actually just remembered something else. It was really funny. Very specific to you. And I'm really hoping you don't remember this and I'm going to remind you. So you were being booked by a photographer to come down to Littlehampton where I was living at the time.
Yeah.
And he had this concept to shoot you where you would go out at night, I think it was on the beach, and there would be fire.
Oh my God, yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, I literally just remembered it. And I remember, I think he sent you over the idea and you immediately like screenshot it and sent it to me and was just like, what is going on? You can't do this. What? Help me get out of this.
I definitely didn't do it. That's the main thing. I got out of it.
It was like a wall of fire.
It was a wall of fire, but it wasn't real fire. He was going to Photoshop it in afterwards.
Because you go to the beach to do that.
Yeah. Water and fire together.
Oh God, this is how pathetic I am. I didn't even see the artistic merit of all of this. God, I just remember your panic on Facebook.
Geez,
you messaging me just like, what is this idea? What is happening? Help me get out of this.
Yeah.
God, there's so many things. All right, so here's a good one. I'll try and remind you of something else. So do you remember, I actually posted this conversation. Me and you had a private conversation. I posted it online for everyone to see. Do you remember what I'm talking about yet?
I think so, yeah.
So I messaged you and I said, I'll try and do this. You don't laugh, all right? I'm going to try and do this as accurately as the way that I typed what I said.
Go. So
I said, Charlotte, I feel like I really need to talk to you about something. And then you were like, okay, what? And I was like, I've been dealing with a lot of feelings and it's been really hard lately. Trying to keep everything in order. I feel a certain way and I feel like I can't act on it. And we really need to have this conversation. And you were like, oh God.
I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, I remember.
You were terrified. And I dragged it out for absolutely ages.
Yeah, I know.
And then the punchline of all of this was that I said that I had just had a really nice stew and it was delicious.
Yeah.
But you thought I was obviously like either coming on to you or coming out of the closet. Basically, it was the way that I'd worded this whole thing out. And I just remember that amount of swearing that came my way afterwards.
Yeah, because I remember I was sitting there and I was just like this. I was like, what's he gonna say? And then you said, I was like, oh, you bastard, you got me.
And then I shared it publicly and you saw it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was honestly one of the funniest things I remember. That's probably one of my best memories of photography, which is really saying something.
Not the photographs.
Not the photographs, no. All right, so let's work towards the end of modelling. Was there like a final shoot where you were like, that's it, I'm done, I can't do any more?
It was my last show, actually.
Hair show?
Yeah.
Okay. But did you know going in it was your last show?
No, but afterwards I was like, I'm done. I didn't have anything. I don't think I had anything else kind of booked. And I was like, I'm just going to let this frazzle from here because I just don't want to do it anymore.
So what happened at this show then?
I mean, it was a good show. It was for a good salon, so it was quite good from that perspective. They did some crazy stuff with my hair. They did stuff on stage, so I couldn't even see what it looked like. The best way to I think, what did my boyfriend say? He said, I look like the Jamaican flag when I came home. So I had like yellow, green, I had pink, and then obviously like my normal coloured hair. They just started putting coloured strips in my hair, didn't tell me they were going to do it. They did it on stage so I couldn't see. And then I got home and I was like, what the hell? So that wasn't great. And I think, what was the other thing? Oh, yeah. I remember I gave them my sizes. So this is a big thing that used to always happen to me. So I've got bigger hips than most kind of normal models, shall we say. And I always, when they asked for measurements, I was always upfront about that and stuff. Obviously was not passed on to the stylist because the stylist had no clothes for me that fitted.
Right.
So they like squeezed me into this tartan skirt, and I still remember it because it was horrible, and it didn't cover my ass. So walking around at a hair show with this thing that just did not cover me was pretty horrible. And I just remember coming home and being like, why the fuck am I doing this? I don't need to do this. I don't want to do it anymore. And I think that was it. But yeah, they weren't particularly nice to me for that skirt incident. They kind of made me feel like the fat girl who didn't declare her sizing properly.
Right.
And I was like,
because you're tiny. Like you are tiny. You are. You're very petite.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not in the fashion world. I'm not.
But in terms, I know what you mean by your hips. Like you do have like. You I don't know if you say you got big hips, but I guess comparatively with your frame.
Yeah.
But you are a very small framed person.
Yeah.
And you know what's always weird? So you are one of two models that I've worked with more than a couple of times that this has happened with. I've seen it so much, it's ridiculous. And it's one of my biggest, one of the things I get most pissy about, I'd probably say, like where you know when you see something online that annoys you,
yeah,
and you walk away. And that's it. This is the thing that will never happen with. I see it online and I cannot help myself. I have to step in. Now, currently, I'm the heaviest I've ever been. So I'm now about 15 stone. And I don't know how big I was when we first met, but I was a damn sight smaller. It's fine. You can laugh. It's not a problem.
I don't really remember that. So
you're just so mad with rage you couldn't see me.
Exactly.
But I'm now like the biggest I've ever been. So this isn't about sort of defending your own territory here. I'm laying the groundwork for something. Bear with me. I'm slow. So I'm not skinny. I used to be skinny when I was sort of up to about 23, and I got married at 24, and it all went to hell. That's what happens with marriage. But there is a really bizarre part of modern equality, feminism, whatever. I'm not going to get really socio-political, but there is a really weird part that's very specific, that it's okay to absolutely trash slimmer people.
Yeah.
Like horrendous, horrible comments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's socially acceptable because equality.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one particular photo of you that I'd posted, and it was either Instagram or probably Facebook. And there was just endless comments. I remember you had that weird guy. There was a weird guy that used to always comment on your stuff, really aggressive stuff. I'm not going to say his name. I can actually remember part of his name, weirdly. Who, nothing to do with me, to do with you, who you would post stuff and he would write the most offensive, horrible, bullying, harassing stuff underneath it. And it's so unbelievably infuriating to me. And I'm a big fat guy, so I'm not defending my own territory here. But why is it socially acceptable now to absolutely trash, talk horrendous sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a mob mentality of anyone that's under a size 10, I guess, or maybe even under a size 12 at this point. Maybe even under a size 14 at this point. I don't know.
I don't even know.
I'm saying this like I know what clothes sizes are. Just XL for me, thanks. Or if I'm feeling comfy, XXL. But there is this thing of it's absolutely fine to completely trash, especially slim women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why?
I know. I mean, I wish I could tell you the answer to that, but I haven't got a clue. I remember, I think, with that incident and with another image, I had it twice very aggressively. And that was, I think that's the thing, that people don't understand, that some things are done or exaggerated in post-production, and it's not real life. And this is a bigger issue. But I remember there was an image I did ages ago with another photographer where I basically had to really heavily breathe in, and my ribs were sticking out because I was breathing in, as would with most people. You'd see
even me at this point.
You'd literally see some rib if you're breathing completely in. And then obviously the shadowing on that was exaggerated in Photoshop, so it looked more defined. But all I remember was, oh, she needs a sandwich, someone feed her a burger. Oh, men don't like, someone who's...
The phrase I always read, and it's the one that like triggers me. I'm almost getting like a blood burst from my eye saying it, but it's when they go, real men like meat on the bones.
Yeah, meat on the bones.
Always said by people that don't sleep with women.
And it's like, only dogs like bones, like that stuff. It's just like, oh, like, please, like, you literally know nothing about me. You actually don't even know what size I actually am.
I actually think, like, beyond you, in this scenario, there's you and then there's the person saying it. Just go to, like, Asda on a Thursday night at 11 o'clock at night. And there's, I'm not going to say the comedian's name because it'll get me banned, because he's banned from everything. But he always said, if you go to Walmart at 11 o'clock at night, you'll see a sphere with a bit of hair on top and shoes on the bottom, and she'll have 12 kids. This idea that men are going, ugh, no, to anything is ridiculous, firstly. But this idea that, like, apparently men are the connoisseurs of society and we're being really particular, firstly, is ridiculous. Secondly, it's always someone who has no sexual interest in your side that then says what people would be interested in on your side. It's straight women telling other straight women that men aren't interested. It's like, how the hell would you know?
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I think women can be just as horrible about the stuff, and I don't know why. Like, it's crazy, because on, I guess, kind of the polar opposite side of this is people are starting to embrace their bodies, whether they've got like fat rolls in their stomach or like some rolls on the side. Like, people are like, yeah, whatever, I don't care, and that's liberating. But if it's the other side, where it's, someone who's thinner, who's trying to do the same thing, it's, oh, that's so disgusting. Oh, she's anorexic. Or she needs help. I had so much of that. I'm literally not anorexic. I've never had an issue with eating. I eat a hell of a lot.
I bought you dinner. I've seen it. I remember actually the first time we worked together after I moved to West Sussex, and we got pizza delivered. And it was like 2 or 3 boxes of pizza. There was about 4 of us, I think, there. Yeah. And we put the pizza down, had this huge L sofa, which you always used to like take the corner, which basically meant the L sofa was all yours. And I remember turning back, and you had just slid one of the pizzas over to your side of the sofa. And you were like, you had the box lid up and you were just eating from like under the box lid.
No, right. In my defense, no one else was eating it, and I just felt like I couldn't be the first one to take any. But I was really hungry. I know, but I was really hungry, so I was trying to do it like sneakily, so people didn't see.
But you just looked like this folded up little person, like a vole in the corner, just attacking some bread.
That's just what happens when I'm hungry.
But yeah, no, it's absolutely right. One of the things that sort of I find really funny is this premise that it's harder to be fat than it is to be skinny. That it's like the actual achievement of being slimmer requires movement. What I'm saying now is my opinion and not that of Charlotte. I'm just clarifying so that you don't get any nonsense from this. Everyone can come after my fat ass. But for me to have a 6-pack would take more effort than for me to eat a bun. right?
I mean, if you put it that literally, I guess.
So someone that's got a six pack, there's actually a phrase that always comes out. It's about like real women. It's like Dove's got this campaign, right? For like real women. Because obviously when you lose enough weight that you're under, I don't know, like a size 10 or whatever it is they're annoyed about, you suddenly become, you have to hand in your vagina.
Yeah, you're not real anymore. Yeah.
That's the thing I've always found amazing. Like someone like you, it's down to hard work and metabolism, right? And we were all young. I had a metabolism when I was younger. I remember when I was skinny. Sad time. But I remember having a metabolism where I could just eat and eat and eat and eat and I would never put weight on. When I was 16 years old, 15 years old, I was getting into hockey, as in proper hockey, not field hockey. And more hate coming my way for that.
Yep.
And I was deep frying bacon sandwiches just to try and put weight on because I weighed 9 stone and I was getting the absolute piss knocked out of me by people 3 times my size.
Yeah.
So I was trying desperately to put weight on so that I actually had some mass, but my metabolism wouldn't let me. I just, the whole scenario to me is bizarre that you would have a movement that's about like equality for women and feeling liberated as a woman. But all it is we've gone from like the 90s where it was attack the fat woman to now it's just attack the skinny woman.
Yeah.
And not even the skinny woman. It's getting to the point where it's like attack anyone that isn't larger. It's a bit ridiculous. I mean, I find the Simply Be advert hilarious where it's like they're all like dancing around and happy with themselves and stuff. And that's fine. Like I'm like personal preference here because apparently it matters. I don't tend to personally go for skinny women. That's not my thing, but I'm not a big fan of coffee. That doesn't mean I don't think anyone else should enjoy coffee.
Yeah.
But the Simply Be advert makes me laugh because it's like, we're more than our clothes size, whatever I say. And it's like, who the hell are you what are you talking about? Who is this person that's like, I'm a size 8 and that's it. There's nothing else going on. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And I think that's the issue is that I think it's great because obviously, like a few years ago, larger women would get that kind of abuse and
they shouldn't.
That's not fair.
No, not at all.
And I think it's great that, society is embracing plus size women and actual plus size women, not people that are slightly curvy and they're saying they're plus size. Like, I think that's all great, but yeah, it is kind of coming at the price of let's attack the thin person because
it's the modern thing generally in terms of sort of the way society's going that for there to be a winner, someone has to be a loser.
Yeah.
When it doesn't have to be that way. No. You can say, here is a bigger person, we won't abuse them without going, so instead,
exactly.
Let's go get the skinnies. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, one of the weird things about it is it's almost like the existence of anyone that's smaller is the problem. Like you're just existing.
Yeah.
It's not like I've never seen you like go and punch a fatty or anything like that.
No, I'm not going around punching people.
No. Well played. You really sidestepped that nicely.
People of size in my spare time.
No, but you're not, you haven't said anything to me about my size. You've definitely looked like you thought about it, but
no.
I'm joking. But you don't go around actively seeking out people to make them feel bad. So it just seems weird that for them to feel good about themselves, they need you to feel bad. Yeah. That's the part that I can't quite balance. No. It's like somehow I should feel better because someone else feels worse. That's the only way I can feel better. Or I should feel worse so someone else can feel better. That's ridiculous. Everyone can feel a lot better. I will say, as a side note, I think that this whole idea that everyone needs to have really high self-esteem is utter nonsense. Because I think it's like respect, you have to earn it. If you're not going to try, you don't really, deserve a lot of respect or self-esteem. Otherwise, what are we all doing?
Yeah.
You're not going to get better at something if you already think you're perfect. And this idea that everyone should just feel like they're perfect just the way they are is nonsense. Everyone should be trying to get better at everything.
Yeah.
That's a personal thing. Again, the views put forward were those of mine and not of Charlotte's. So you've left modelling.
Yeah.
What have you done since?
So I was working anyway, kind of all the way through, when I was modelling. So I still work. I work within marketing, but now specifically in social media. So yeah, I mean, that's really exciting. Very different.
So what's the kind of stuff you do? Because I know you're a writer. So is it that do you do writing for social media?
Well, okay, I guess it kind of comes in two bits. So I guess the social media stuff's like my day job. And then I'll occasionally kind of write freelance stuff for people, kind of dependent on what they want. So like foodie places might want some kind of post writing for them, so I'll write some stuff for them. Or I do quite a lot with fashion brands, usually quite small ones, but quite a while ago I used to write for some bigger names that I won't drop in here in case they get angry at me. But yeah, it's quite interesting, quite diverse, but yeah, I don't miss the modelling stuff.
And you're now, in preparation for this, while I was walking my dog this morning, I felt like I knew you really well. So I went over to your website and realised I don't really know you at all. So you're now a food photography sort of thing going on. I don't like to say that, but
I
don't like to brag.
No, I really don't, because I'm not going to start being like, oh yes, I'm a food photographer. Everyone can pay me £500 a night for half a day's work. No, I do it because social requires photography. So it's basically a part of my job.
But you enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm not claiming to be the best photographer in the world or anything like that. Or
it's what you said before we started the podcast.
No, it's not. But yeah, I mean, I quite enjoy it. Again, it's quite creative. So as I said, I guess I hate people that say this, like, oh, I'm such a creative person. Look at all these directions I've gone in, but I kind of sound a bit like that, don't I?
No, a little bit, no. Well, I always knew you were into writing, even when we first met. You talked about it then, so it wasn't like it was. You do see sometimes. Oh, I've got to be careful how I say this, but you do see sometimes where there are some models. They get to sort of 31, 32. They're on their way out the door of modelling for one reason or another, usually requirement, because that's just the way life is.
Yep.
And they suddenly are like, shit.
What am I doing?
Real world.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? And they've got nothing to then go into.
Yeah.
They're usually the worst kind of people. They are usually the most difficult people to try and hold a multi-syllabic conversation with, unless you talk about them.
Yeah. It's difficult. And I mean, I'm trying to be careful of how I word this, but from a very personal thing, I think that's a really stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
Because no one can think that you will be a model for the rest of your life, because no one that I'm talking about at this point is a supermodel or famous or anything like that. So your time will run out, whether you decide that or whether people just stop booking you. There will be a point where you have to stop. And to have no backup seems, I guess, quite irresponsible. Which is why, that's why I always worked. And this was always kind of like a part-time thing for me.
But it's not hidden, is it? Like the idea, it's not like you get into modelling or you get into anything to do with the fashion world or to do with that whole side of things. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. It's 18 to 30 seems to be the general area where it all goes on. Yeah. Going in. Yeah. It's really obvious going in. If you have any peripheral vision at all, you can see very few people make it out from that point.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you go for an agency, they won't sign you if you're over 21. So, Well,
I remember the last bit of agency work I did, they weren't signing anyone that didn't have a certain number of followers. So we've really hit that point where it's just everything is down to followers. It's the word I would ban if I was in control of the country. I'd ban the word followers.
Yeah.
Because it gives everyone like a Jesus complex. Everyone thinks they've got disciples.
Yeah. And it's quite contradictory of me to say, considering I work in social media, but I think social media for brands is very different to personal social media. And I do think there's something very toxic about kind of personal social media accounts because one, it has self-esteem issues. So, if you haven't got 10,000 followers, you're like, what's wrong with me? Which you shouldn't be thinking that, because who gives a shit, really, at the end of the day. And I'm not saying I'm perfect in this, because I've done exactly the same thing. I've been like, I think
it's actually a side effect of the drug. I think I've had it. I think everyone that's been on social media, it's the atmosphere around it is that it exists for validation.
Yeah.
And that the numbers are what validate you. And I've been sucked into the idea of like, oh, well, you know, it's weird. I mean, from my business's point of view, the wedding side of things, I do look at the numbers, and my numbers are bad by comparison, but my business is going well. So it's obviously not affecting it to a point where I can't live.
Yeah.
So I just don't let it affect me. But I've had full-on conversations in 2019 with people where they've talked me through their social media following, and they've talked me through how they can get this, and they have to post at a certain time of day. And it's like, but if you're like a restaurant that's looking to get more customers, and I can understand it. If you're like, I don't know, like me, where I'm a photography business and I'm looking to get more clients through the door and so on, and I can understand having a strategy.
Yeah.
But when you're like, you have to have a strategy for posting pictures of your cat or pictures of your dinner, I think we're in like scary times where you're letting validation kind of run your existence.
But then I think on the flip side of that some people will take, you know, especially people who have different modeling names and stuff like that, they see that as their brand. And if that's all they're doing, they're using that as a vehicle to sell themselves, because the more popular they look, the more interesting their stuff is, the more likes they get, the more followers they get. It's still perceived that makes you more desirable as a model, as someone to shoot with, because, you know, even someone who's very new might go, oh, well, this person's got 100,000 followers. If I work with them and they credit me, then I might get loads of traction to my Instagram.
It's one of the places where I don't think men and women are equal.
No.
In that, when I have a conversation, there's a guy I know very well, very good friends. He's a very nice guy. But he talks about, oh, I'll go and work with this person because they have a large following.
Yeah.
And I've got to be honest with you, I think a lot less of a guy that talks like that. Because what are you doing? Like, if you take the average Instagram model's following and you break it down into subsections, like loose subsections, you've got bots, lurkers, people that hate them, perverts, supporters. Supporters is probably the third or fourth group, really.
Yeah.
It's not the biggest group. And the other side of it, and you'll know more about this than me, and I have a theory and I'm absolutely fine with being wrong, but I'm not. It's like when you ask me who's my favorite person to work with, you mean me. I need to just say that you're my favorite person to work with.
Yeah.
I'd say quickly, I'm going to say something very nice. I have absolutely missed the fact that you're not modeling anymore. You're one of the people I absolutely loved working with, and it has been horrible. And we haven't spoken much either since, which has been horrible. I actually didn't know if you'd even replied to me about doing this.
I'm here.
You are a bit of a nice queen.
Look, I'm here, so I'm not that bad, am I?
It's true. It's true. You had nothing else going on today. So here's my little weird theory idea, that there's a lot of parallels between social media like gratification and drugs. There's a lot of in the behavior of people that are on them. And one of the things that I don't think is true, I think is a myth, is that there is the money in it, that there is claimed to be the money in terms of if you're an Instagram model and you're doing posts for not big brands, I mean coming out of someone's garage kind of brands, you're not earning much money.
No.
So the idea that posting a couple of promo codes for 10% off a product no one's ever heard of in exchange for showing your ass or showing your cleavage or pretending that a product has changed your life because you got emailed 2 days ago about taking a picture about it, the money's not there. And I think that to try and keep up the appearance that the money's there, people get themselves in more and more trouble. They'll go to more and more lavish extent to say that something is paying them a lot of money or is making them successful, and it's not. Am I in the ballpark?
I think it depends. There is a lot of money in influencer marketing, but influencer marketing done right. The ones that you're talking about are usually commission based. So it will be a certain amount of money you get back off X amount of people using a promo code. But it's like 1p or something. So you're right. There's no money in that.
It kind of reminds me of the old school record contracts, like back in the 70s and 80s, or no, probably going more towards the 90s, where you would earn like one penny for every 150 quid, or maybe even more than 150 quid. You'd be earning next to nothing. And if you sell, it used to be like back in the MTV Cribs kind of days, and when music was a big thing on actual music television, that the posturing with the money that they had was nonsense, because the record company held all their money. And it was only when like Napster and that came around that it started to sort of democratize where the money was going, and that's why record labels kind of fell by the wayside. But I feel like I could reel off 20 names off the top of my head. I won't, because I'll get instant problems from doing that. But there are people that just pretend that they are living this extravagantly amazing lifestyle off of this influencer money for products no one's ever heard of, that no one wants. And it's just nonsense. It's really transparent. And I feel like to try and keep up the appearances of being that successful, they spend their own money, or they spend more of their life focused on it, and it becomes a spiral in the same way that drug use is. Oh, it's not a problem, and then use more, and it becomes more of a problem, and it spirals. I really feel like there's a parallel there. Yeah. Is it not dangerous to be giving? I mean, there's now apparently like where there are girls coming out of school saying, "Oh, I want to grow up and be an Instagram model. I want to be an influencer." Yeah, which I don't believe is a real word. Influencer's not a real word. Influenza is the word I think they're thinking of.
Yeah. And I think, you know what? There are some people that do make a living of it. They're celebrities because, they've got ambassador deals with big global brands that are paying them that kind of money, so then they can go off and travel the world, blah, 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 blah. And that's fine. There will always be people like that because these platforms exist. And I think what you're saying is the problem is when that trickles down into the smaller scale.
Exactly.
But everyone's pretending they are that bigger celebrity level.
Yeah.
But they're not. I guess from my perspective as well, I'm finding it hard. Like, it's very much a look how great my life is platform, when actually none of that's real, and most of it's staged. And actually that's not your life, and that's not actually what you're doing every day. You're going and buying a load of clothes from ASOS, doing a shoot, taking them all back because you can't actually afford to buy them all anyway, and it is a bit fake.
The modelling world's already fake. Like the photographic model. I'm not just picking on models. The photography side of things really fake as well. It makes me. It's actually really fun. It's one of those fun things when you see photographers that are talking about like, oh, I've got space to be booked in here, there, and everywhere, and like it's this much an hour and stuff. And you're looking at their work, and you're like, who's paying that? Because I feel like the market you're going for is. Men want to see it and women don't really want to be part of it. Yeah. So I don't know how many women are paying to be part of that. Or a woman now with a mobile phone can take a few selfies and make the same impression online as what they can do from paying you. Yeah. So why would they pay you?
I think that's people chancing their arm, to be honest with you.
I think it's chancing their arm until a point where it becomes a regular thing where they're posting constantly about how they're busy.
But they have to do that, don't they? Or otherwise no one will ever even look at them. Because if you're not like, oh my God, look how busy I am. This is what I mean. Everyone's like, look how busy I am. Look at this, what I'm doing. I'm doing this. That's literally what my social media is.
It's Rihanna syndrome. Rihanna a few years ago released like 5 albums in 2 years or something ridiculous. And it was just like, can you just fuck off for a bit? Just piss off for a little while and we'll come back to liking you. But like, just back off. It's weird. Just go on holiday. Yeah. And it's overexposure. But people don't know about overexposure because they think that everyone's waiting to see what their next move is. I think it was my dad always used to have a phrase about selfish people think that the world stops spinning when they close their eyes. And I think there's a lot of people on social media that are like that.
Yeah. I think, or at least they come across like that because they're scared that if they don't do that, then everyone forgets who they are.
Yeah. Which you can't really be someone if someone can forget about you that quickly.
Yeah.
This is depressing.
I know. This has taken a very
No, that's all right.
negative turn.
I'll do a really smooth transition and no one will notice. So as far as looking back on modeling, what are the things that you're like most proud of that you did? Like, is there any shoots that particularly stand out? Any images that really stand out that you look back on, you're really happy with? Any experiences?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy anything, Charlotte?
I did. I really did. I know
No, you've been fine. It's literally the last 5 minutes I've completely derailed this by being negative. It's all my fault.
So,
we'll have to have a row about it.
No, it's fine. No, there was stuff that I really, really enjoyed. And I think there's just a thing where it's easy to talk about the negative stuff because that's the stuff that sticks in your head.
And it's more fun.
And it's more fun, maybe.
It is.
If people are still listening at this point.
That's on the assumption they were listening to begin with.
But yeah, there are some really great people out there who are really good at what they do, and you can create some really great stuff. And there's so many shoots that I'll remember for that. And it's why I kind of got into it in the first place. So I am thankful for that, but it isn't one of those things that lasts forever anyway.
No.
And I just took my time to get out of it when I didn't like it. And I do think that people stick in it for the wrong reasons. And if you don't like it, just don't do it anymore.
Well, you said on your website, I was reading, you're saying about moving on from a job quite quickly.
Yeah.
That you kind of got there, realised it wasn't for you and moved on.
Yeah.
And you said that like your mantra is, well, if you're not happy, then change something.
Yeah.
And that's obviously actually true. Like a lot of people say, oh, I have this principle and then they never act on it. But you obviously.
Yeah. I know it sounds so corny, doesn't it? When it's like, oh, if you don't like something, change. But so many people, I think, just get kind of stuck in a habit or stuck in their ways, but they're really bloody miserable. And actually you can, you know what I mean? You can do whatever you want. If you're not happy in something, just change it, do something else.
Best time ever to be alive, really, because you can just change and focus your attention somewhere else and learn a new skill really quickly for free on like YouTube or whatever, or go to a college or do whatever.
Yeah.
There's all these options available. People have never been freer in this country and it's never been a better time to do that stuff. So have you not had any days at all since you stopped where you were like, I could still
I do miss it. And I, sometimes you kind of, something will pop up or like, I don't know, someone might like an old modelling image and they kind of crop back up sometimes. And I'm like, oh, that was a nice day. It'd be good to do something like that again. But I think that's usually all it is. And then I kind of remember like, actually it's not just taking the image. It's all the prep. It's all the legwork. If I tried to get back in it now, I'd have to start again, basically from scratch.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as, oh, I'll just get back into it or anything like that. But, sometimes it's with everything, isn't it, that you do? Like sometimes you're like, oh, that was nice. Maybe I could do that again. But,
I think when you're telling stories, I don't mean you, I mean the royal you. I think when people are telling stories, you focus on negatives because negatives are funnier, generally speaking. They're more interesting or they're funnier.
Yeah.
But when you remember more of the good stuff.
Yeah.
Just by comparison.
Yeah.
And I look back on like jobs I've had in the past or just experiences I've had in the past and I'm like, oh yeah, that was amazing. And then you have that sort of little moment of clarity a bit later on. You're like, no, it wasn't. That's the reason I'm not there anymore. Like I can think of 20 reasons why that sucked. Like, but it's just weird how people like when you're projecting something, you try and find, or at least I definitely do, try and find the funny negative way in.
Yeah.
When people ask about my job, I'm always trying to find like the funny negative way in rather. If I talk about wedding photography, if I have a conversation with anybody and I start talking about like how amazing it is to capture moments for a family, I can just see eyes glaze over. Right. But if I go, well, there was this one time, as soon as I start talking like that, people go, what did she do? Do you know what I mean? So to come at things from the negative, it's not necessarily that it was always a negative experience, but like it wasn't always a positive one either.
No, and I don't think there's anything in life that is 100% positive.
No.
But Yeah, I think it's more like if the love goes, then there's no point, is there really?
Yes.
Like you're just literally doing it for the sake of it, and then
it's another reason we're so similar. So my deciding to be a photographer full time was I actually remember really clearly the whole evening what happened. So I was working as a manager for a supermarket, which was hell because it was a stopgap job that I stayed in for too long. And weekends I was a wedding photographer and doing all other stuff as well, teaching workshops and whatnot. And got to the evening and I'd had a really horrible week. Not long since almost got murdered at my job by a crackhead with a needle.
Jeez.
It was a bad day. See, bad stories always funny to look back on. You're laughing at me almost getting murdered. And you're a terrible person, Charlotte. So I've done 10 days straight of either doing my day job or working as a photographer. And I'm watching a random YouTube video while I'm tidying up my office, which was the cupboard my wife let me use at the time. And I was watching a video about a kid that went to Boston College to play ice hockey. And he was going to be this next big thing and whole life ahead of him and so on. And his first step on the ice, essentially, his first shift, which is your first time out in his first game at Boston College. I'm pretty sure it was Boston College. He was skating in, completely freak incident, tripped, hit the boards head first and was paralyzed from the neck down.
Jeez.
Has been since. So his whole career disappeared in just like an instant. And with the incident I'd had with my other job and the fact that when I was 19 I had a heart attack and life just throws stuff at you. I just decided, why am I spending any amount of the time I've got left being pissed off, bored and miserable when I could there's a thing right there that I want to do. I could just go and do it. And I remember waking Jamila up, and Jamila, Jamila well. She's lovely. But if you wake her up when she's in a deep sleep, the first stage is pure panic. She assumes something's exploded or someone's died. It's the only reason you'd wake her up. And then she goes into like this tired rage. But she was very sweet after she calmed down and stopped hitting me. She's very sweet. And she actually was like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, then we're going to make it happen. And you get better from then on. You feel like everything moves forward. And the last thing I want to ask you, and I'm not sure, I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to ask you. The last thing I want to ask you is, when you look back at your time as a model, do you feel like the modeling community was supportive or kind of malicious based on your time? I'm not saying you can speak for everyone else, but just based on your time.
My time.
You're looking at me like you're quite annoyed for me asking that question.
No, I'm not. It's a really hard question. I hate to say it, but I think it was more nasty, to be honest. I think there's this mentality. Again, it kind of comes back to what we're talking about online. Like, people are so different. Models kind of start seeing it as like you're fighting with everyone for work, when actually there's space for everyone. I mean, there is some of that. But there are some, as I said, I think photographers, if they get what you want to do and get what you're about, and, it doesn't have to be that they want to work with you, but at least they understand, they're more supportive than fellow models. I think the only caveat to that is, as I said, kind of at shows, it's quite different because you're slung in a room with a bunch of strangers, and usually you've all
got a job at that point.
Exactly. And no one's out to kind of fight each other for work because we're all there working anyway.
Yeah.
I've met some really lovely people from being on a shoot with people or being at a show. But online, it's just not good.
No. And that's the problem. I think the whole community exists online more than it does in the real world.
Yeah.
Okay. So where can people find your writing and photoing and other stuff?
So my website is my name, so that's really easy. So charlottenorris.com.
Lovely. And Instagram?
Is Charlotte Writes.
Charlotte Writes, as in W.
With a W,
Lovely.
yes.
For those of us that can spell. I want to say honestly, I really appreciate you coming and doing this.
No
I
worries.
really, really do. I was so expecting either no response or a no when I asked you if you wanted to do this, and you were so kind to come down and do this. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's all right.
Love you.